G'day team, welcome to another video. So this is actually take two of this video. I spent about 45 minutes making this video this morning, and then when I went to edit it this afternoon, I realized that I had the video capture thing set up wrong. So anytime I would click on edit type, this little window would not pop up. So it just showed me moving the mouse around a blank space. So hopefully I'll get it done in about half the time this time, because I have a bit more of an idea of what we're going to go over. So I have actually gone for the Australian template here and the loaded one, and I'll provide a link to where we find that, or you know, wherever you are in the world, your specific template if it's not in this folder. Yeah, I believe it's better to go over the top of a kind of like a semi-loaded or regionally appropriate template rather than a totally blank one, just because you can kind of tweak what they're provided rather than have to, you know, put everything like elevations and sections and all that stuff in. So yeah, once you click that and go create, you're going to be on a screen like this. So having a quick look at what we have down in the project browser, there's a couple of plans. Ceiling plan, 4 elevations, section, no legends, some very basic schedules, and a pretty average looking title block, which is yeah, it's going to need updating. And then we have a bunch of basic families and stuff in here, and profiles, etc. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So going through, the walls that are included in this template are actually fairly substantial for what I was expecting. So you've got a couple of like 110 and 230 thick brick. You've got a 250 brick veneer wall. You've got some generic walls, and then 70 and 90 timber and steel studs. So that's a pretty good starting point. There's only a few extra types of walls in there that you would actually want to create. So just a very basic one that I'd like to add. So 90, let's grab our stud 90 timber, say that it's going to go up to level 1, and the location line, whoever draws walls within the location line is wall center line, and needs to have a chat with someone, because you should always go, you know, finish face or core face, interior or exterior. It's just the way it is, man. All right, so let's draw this in here. First thing I notice is the fact that this actually has no solid hatch. So let's go up to edit type, timber, and then the color is probably not the end of the world to me, but the fact that when you cut through it, it's a white color. I'm just gonna, yeah, let's go there, solid fill. Okay, that's looking better. All right, what I'm going to want to do from here is, so this works as a normal, like a standard wall, it kind of like a pre-construction, and I'll explain what I mean in a second by that. So let's go duplicate. So 90 plus cladding. All right, so let's make a lightweight wall which has a cladding on the outside of it. So what I did just then was, the function of this layer that we've just added is non-core, so it's non-structural. So we'll move it up so it's beyond the core boundary, and then it says exterior side up here. So that's all good. Let's go finish, and then by material just is what it is. You can assign a material at any point. Let's make it 15 mil thick, because that's the approximate thickness of most kind of weatherboards and FC sheeting, and like that's what it all kind of works out to be. So let's go apply and okay, and then that's looking pretty good. Cool, so they're all on the exterior there. Let's have a look in 3D. So yeah, that's all looking pretty cool. Something that, and just while we're here very quickly, it looks like there's you know, some fairly substantial flaws. To be honest, I'd probably only use 1 or 2 of these. So Usually only going to be slab and then timber floor and kind of variations of those two, because mostly what I do is residential work. Well, everything I do is residential, so I don't really have much of a need for, you know, big commercial concrete thicknesses and stuff. But yeah, so let's just say it's an in situ concrete. Actually, let's run with just generic for now. So using the pick walls tool, select the outside of it, press tab, which you can see on my little keyboard there, hopefully. And then we're going to draw around the external core face of the wall, just so that we have a floor in there. And that's cool. So we'll have a look at our section. That looks good to me. All right. Something that is important, and I'm going to jump up to level 1 here. And then I'm going to do pretty much what we've just done downstairs for upstairs. Don't attach, no. Wall. Finish face interior this time. And then we'll make that go, say 2440, because that's 2400 ceiling plus. Okay. And that wasn't my generic wall. All right. So if we, so it's 3800, so I'm just kind of getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but let's rename this as GFL, because that shouldn't get you into trouble, because it's pretty generic. We'll copy this level up 2150 and then call that W or window. And then we'll copy this one up again. Actually, no, I lie. Let's just change that to 2400. Because that's a very common ceiling height here in Australia. And these level heads and styles and stuff, they all need to be changed because they're pretty rough. But yeah. And the dimension style too is pretty rough. All right, so let's call that GCL. All right, so these are a little bit hard to read because these level heads, like I said, are just pretty shocking. So let's duplicate up 360 mil for our upper floor level. Actually, you know what? I've made an error there. Because these walls are already hosted and this floor is already hosted on this, I'm actually just going to change this to UFL. And I'm going to move it up 360 mil and then copy a level down 360 so it's in the same spot. So this is going to be GCL because nothing was really attached to that. So now we have space for floor and ceiling and void and all of that kind of stuff in here. Whereas this level that we used as a base for some walls and floors now actually is called what it's supposed to be. And then that should go there, and then we should add this to here, and then we don't want this one to change, but these ones will remain unlocked because that's just the way it should go. Because you're often going to have to change, you know, ceiling heights and window head heights, but you're rarely going to change the depth between there and yeah. UCL and then upper window. Okay, cool. Look, that's very basically how we would go around creating levels in jobs. It's a good idea if you're going to be doing a lot of 2-story houses or 1-story houses to have the levels pre-made and the plans pre-made. Then you can go through and it's all kind of done if it's a 2-story house, and if it's not, then you can just grab them and delete them and then continue with the 1-story project. Okay, so the point that I was getting to originally here is So with the cladding, we've added a cladding layer on the outside here, but you can see that it steps in and out because it doesn't actually span that gap, because it just goes between whatever the top and bottom constraint of this wall is. And you can see there's only one triangle here. So if we go into edit type, and then, so this 90 plus cladding, go edit, and then click this little preview button down here. And then click on modify. What that's going to do is let you, say you can select these faces here. I don't know if you can really see given the thing, but if we click on this, you notice that there's a little padlock that pops up. If we want to unlock that, click on here, there's a padlock, leave that locked. And then we're going to go all the way up to the top. And then click on the little padlock here and then unlock that as well. So what this does is it means that you're able to change the height of that layer of the wall independent of whatever level or height the overall wall is attached to. So if we go okay, that's okay. So now you can see that we have, or did it not work? Okay, so this is not working because I've already attached the top base, so it is having a problem working out what's going on there. So let's just change that. There's no associations with these ones, I don't believe. So let's just go through and quickly try and do that again. Okay, good. All right, so now these have been unlocked. So top offset, make that 360. So the cladding runs all the way up, and then we're technically able to join these two, or all of the walls, and you would be none the wiser. But yeah, that's just, it's a good way to set up wall layers independent so they can be changed. It's especially good for stuff like brick veneer, where often the stud will sit at one height and then the brick veneer is actually going to set down onto, like, you know, the footing underneath. But yeah, that's all looking good. A one thing, RF for roof. So there's only 4 roofs here. Generic tile roof seems to be the closest thing that we would be using. Extend to wall core and give it an overhang of 600. So extend to wall core means that rather than pitching off this external face, it's going to pitch off the core, which is also very important for brick veneer walls. So hover around the outside here, press tab, click there, tab select that, 25 degrees, and then it's going to be at UCL. I mean, technically it's going to be 40 mil above there, so go finish. And we may as well save the project. Okay, so that's looking, you know, relatively reasonable. Don't worry, this is just an extremely basic, just kind of overview of what is in a standard template these days, and just to give us an idea of what we've got to, what we're up against with modifying all of this stuff moving forward. So next thing I want to put on is fascia. So let's go FA for fascia. Let's have a look at that. The profile is 19 by 89, which is tiny. Let's make it 19 by 235, and I don't think it matters if it's look, it's really going to be timber, usually going to be timber, usually, but you never know. Okay, so we'll go okay there. So I don't love the size of the whole 19 by 235 thing. I like my fascias to be about 30 mil thick. So let's have a look in here. If you're wanting to find a profile or some obscure thing in this endless list of families, that was open from earlier, sorry, but yeah, in this endless list of families and things down here, you don't really actually have to search through this. You can right click anywhere up here, go search, and we know that we're looking for a 235 mil family, and then that takes you straight here. Go edit, we'll go 30 by 230. And it's also, when you're making these things, it's a good idea to have a Google about what actual sizes you can find too. So just looking at like a hardware store here, It's a 230 by 30, 6mm fascia, H3 treated primed, and it's, yeah, 220 bucks for 6 meters. So it's a real product. It's always good to base these things off reality, and yes, that's all looking good. Let's throw a little gutter on this thing. I think the gutter, there's only one gutter in this template, which is okay. Then throw that on. It seems okay. It seems a little bit small. Gutters are usually a little bit bigger than this in where I'm from, because it rains or can rain a lot. Also, one thing I've just noticed here is that I probably will have to override this at some point where it's not going to be solid black, but generally you would only show the outline. Like, you wouldn't show this as a cut thing, because what you'd really be representing there is a truss, and then there'd be another truss behind it, and so it's not quite so likely that you're actually going to be cutting through a truss. It's more like looking at a truss in a section, whereas with a wall you're definitely cutting through the wall, but you're only going to be cutting through the timber part of it. So when you show timber in section, you'd show it as like a little cross. So if we were showing a 90 by 45 stud, you'd show it with a little cross going through it like that. And it's the same thing as if it was like a big beam or whatever, but generally if you're cutting through a piece of timber, you're going to show it as this. So yeah, look, let's probably put a pin in that for now. That's more of a materials thing. Actually, maybe more of a graphics override thing. So we're setting up a view template for a section. You wouldn't want these to be solid, so you're able to show the framing and everything. So I think it's okay for now. So there's only a couple of windows in here, and let's have a look at the doors. Yeah, it's pretty standard. Why would they have an 820 door that's 135 degrees when surely that's just a parameter that you can change? That seems strange to me. If someone knows the answer as to why that's a good idea, tell me, but it seems weird. Yeah, so doors, you can load a bunch of doors into your template. That's probably no biggie. One thing I wouldn't recommend doing is loading tons of windows. Have the window families off to the side that you can then just drag into the job as needed. So depending on how many clients or what kind of like work you're actually into, you might have 4 or 5 different window manufacturers that you would be like specifying on a regular basis. So each of those windows may have upwards of like 90 types or actual window sizes. So if you had all 5 of those window families inside the template, every single time you start the job up, it's going to be like chugging and slow and trying to think, because you've got like 500 types of window in the job, which is just not sensible. So I would always recommend to have all of your windows done in a separate file. And all of the sizes pre-made, because there's nothing worse than having to go through and change or look up the window like the manufacturer's specs, and then like customize each window as you put it in. That's just an insane way of doing things. Whereas if you spend the time and just slug through it, which is what I'm going to have to do shortly, and just go through and, so say for example, we've got an awning window here. All right, so that's fine. And then we know that it's going to have, you'll have an 0618. AAW being an aluminium awning window. The width is going to, let's just say, width is going to be 1800, height is going to be 600. So, okay, great. And then we go create similar. And then we'll duplicate it, and this one's going to be an 0915. So with the sizing and reading the sizing of these things, the first number is always the height. So that's going to be 900 mil, and it's always in increments of a meter. And then the width is going to be 15, so it's 1500. So width is 1500, and then the height is 900. So you can imagine that going through and doing that for 80 or 90 times, it takes forever and it sucks. So, and that's just part of the gig, really. But yeah, do it once, do it right, and then just skirt off that forever. Let's have a look at some room tags. Ooh, that's interesting. Jeez, wish I could spell. All right, so. Okay, so room number. So, okay, so there's 3 built-in parameters here, which is interesting. So if I'm going to change this, I'm going to have to go and edit the family, which is one of hundreds of families that I'm going to have to edit to get this thing to a fully functional, in my opinion, functional standard. So if we go into here. So, okay, so it looks like you would be able to go and like pick and choose these things as needed. So yeah, so 1 is just going to be there, and then that's always going to be stuck below that, and you can change the room number. And I think that the volume and the area should hopefully, that's a bit funny. Okay, so it's just a visibility parameter, so it's saying it's not computed. So these 2 are over the top of each other in the family, which is fine. One thing I have to do, and I've been thinking about this for months, is I have to pick a font and like all that kind of style and stuff that I want to be representing on my plans. I don't want to have Arial because it's just too generic. Century Gothic is what I had at the old place, which I thought was really nice, but I, probably want to not use that. But yeah, one of the many things that I'm going to have to change. But I think just for the basic purpose of episode part 1 of this, I think we've covered a little bit and just shown you just kind of just the basic approach that I've got to dealing with. God, that's a terrible window. Okay, so one more thing is the units, which is UN. So it looks like angle's fine, area is square meters, which is fine, cost per area, don't care. Distance, let's change that to millimeters, because everything trade related in Australia is always going to be in millimeters. Some people in the metric system overseas, like in Europe, they'll use meter, which I think to me just sounds so strange, but it's in different parts of the world. We'll go okay. And then obviously there's American friends with the imperial system, which is just a totally different kettle of fish. Okay, so look, that's pretty much it. We've got a few more plans to make, which is fine. So like for upper levels and like roof plans and all that kind of stuff. Elevations, they seem there's probably not too much to do with them. Just got to rename them and build a new like elevation tag thing. There's a bunch of schedules to make. Things like area schedules. I remember back in 2018 when I made the last template, the area schedule didn't actually calculate correctly. So I'm very curious if that's still the case with this current version of Revit, or if they've fixed that since. But we always had to remake. When we built that template, we had to specifically make some calculations so that it would like increase the number by a magnitude of 10, then divide it down again so that it was more accurate with the decimal places. Otherwise it would manually try and round things. But yeah, look, let's just leave it for there. Yeah, 25 minutes, which is a lot better than 40 so far. Yeah, look, hopefully you got something out of that. Plenty more content to come along with this, and yeah, thank you all for watching and your support, and yeah, talk to you all soon. Have a good one. Bye.